Hi, a few weeks ago, this video from May Made It popped up in my recommended feeds on YouTube, and it was for this cute little mailbox. She shows you how to make it just using a piece of card and a piece of paper and a scoreboard, and it is really simple. If you've not got a scoreboard or you want to make it in the ScanNCut, it's such an easy project to make in ScanNCut Canvas that I thought I'd show you how to do it. So I'm in ScanNCut Canvas and I'm on a new blank page. So she tells you for the main box part to start off with a piece of card that's 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then for the top section, which is the patterned paper, she tells you to use a piece of paper or card that is 6 inches by 2 1/4. So I'm just going to start with the top. So I'm going to come to the basic shapes. I'm going to get a rectangle, go to the properties box. I'm going to untick maintain aspect ratio. I'm going to make this 2 1/4, so 2.25, and then the width I'm going to make 6 inches. Okay, so that's my top piece. Now I'm going to zoom in on this corner of the mat, and then I'm going to drag my rectangle up here and position it right in this top left hand corner. And then I'm going to try and zoom out a little bit, but if at all possible I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. So for this piece that's 6 by 2 1/4, she tells you to score at 1 inch and 5 3/4, which is down here. And this little 1/4 inch on the end here will be your glue tab. You could actually make this bigger if you wanted to and give yourself more of a glue tab, but I'm just showing you with her measurements. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a score line in at 1 inch. And I find that you can either follow your grid lines or you can just hover over the 1 inch and start there. I don't mind my dash lines extending beyond my cut lines. It just is easier sometimes to have them extending above, because if you need to select them independently of any other shape, they're just a little bit easier to get hold of if they extend beyond the main shape, if that makes sense. So I'm going to come to the path icon. I'm going to come to the 1 inch mark, left click and let go, then hold my shift key down, drag my straight line out and double click to anchor it. While it's highlighted, I'm going to come over here, I'm going to change it to a cut line and then to a dash line. You can choose any one you want, I'm just choosing the third one down. And then you need to come along and you need to put your next one in at 5 3/4, which is this mark here, which is 2 after the 5 1/2. So again, come to your path icon, come to your 5 3/4, left click and let go, press and hold down your shift key, drag out your mouse without pressing down, double click to anchor it, come to your properties, change it to a cut line, change it to a dash line. Then I'm going to zoom back to the mat, and then basically that's the top section with the 2 folds. I'm going to group that, so select everything, right click and group, and I'm just going to move that out of the way. Now for the main body of the little mailbox, which is basically a little box that you can put some sweets or candy in, you need a piece of card, she says, that is 4 inches high by 5 1/4. So again, I'm going to choose a rectangle and I'm going to make this 4 inches by 5 1/4. And there it is. Now again, you can do exactly the same. You can drag this up into the top left hand corner here, so you're on your ruler, and you can put the score lines in that she tells you to do in the video. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you an alternative way, but I'm going to leave this here as my imaginary piece of 4 by 5 1/4 card, and hopefully it'll make sense as we go along. So she says to you, in fact, I'll bring it back over here so it's against the ruler. She says to you, with the card in your scoreboard, with the 5 1/4 inch along the top, that you need to score at 1 1/2 inches and 3 3/4 inches, which basically is 1 1/2 inches from this end and 1 1/2 inches from this end. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring on another rectangle and I'm going to hold the shift key down and rotate it so it stays in perfect alignment. And I'm going to make this rectangle 1 1/2 inches wide, which effectively is my first score line here. Hopefully it'll make sense as I go along, so bear with me. So I'm going to come to the properties box. I'm going to leave the maintain aspect ratio unticked because I want to size this specifically. So for the width, I'm going to take it to 1 1/2 inches, and for the height, I'm going to take it to 4. So that's my first piece. And then she tells you to score at 3 3/4 inches, which, as I say, is 1 1/2 inches from this end. So while this one's selected, I'm going to right click and hit duplicate and position that there. So if you take off 1 1/2 inches from here and 1 1/2 inches from here, those two added together are 3 inches, and this piece of card measured 5 1/4. So that means that your middle section here has got to be 2 1/4 inches, because 1 1/2, 1 1/2 and 2 1/4 make 5 1/4. So I'm going to make another rectangle. I'm just going to select one of these and duplicate it. And I'm going to make this now 2 1/4. It's already 4 inches high. So as long as the maintain aspect ratio is unticked, the height won't alter, and I'm going to take this up to 2 1/4. And that is effectively this piece of card scored as she's told us to do. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select just these 3. I'm going to go to Edit, align them all on the bottom edge so I know they're all lined up, and I'm going to zoom in just on this section so you can see what I'm doing. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the middle section, and I'm not using my mouse, and I'm not going to move it up or down because I've just aligned all these. I can realign them again in a minute, but I've done them once, so hopefully I don't have to do them again. All that I'm going to do, I'm going to use the left directional arrow on my keyboard. I'm going to bring this over close to this rectangle but not touching, because I don't want them to weld. As I say, hopefully this will all make sense if you follow the video through. So I'm just going to click off and then click back on and bring it over as close as I dare without it touching. And then I'm going to do the same with this one. So I'm going to select this one, use the left arrow on my keyboard, scoot it over. That one's a bit too close for my comfort now, so I'm going to select it and right click and move it one way. Okay, so that's what we've got so far. Then just going back to this, which is just my visual imaginary piece of card, she tells us then that we have to rotate this in our scoreboard. So I'm just going to hold the shift key down and rotate it so that the 4 inches along the top, and she tells us to score at 1 1/2 and 2 1/2, which is basically an inch. So what we need now, move that out of the way. I'm going to select these 3, right click and group them, and then I'm going to hold the shift key down and rotate it twice so it stays in perfect alignment. And basically what we're going to do, we are going to create our 1 inch by 5 1/4 middle section here. So I'm going to come back to the rectangle. I'm going to rotate it I find by holding the shift key down and rotating it, it always stays in perfect alignment. If you try to just do it by using this, it gets a little bit wonky sometimes. So this now needs to be 1.5 inches by 5.25. So again, properties box, maintain aspect ratios unticked, 1.5 inches, and we need the height to be 5.25. Okay, this is a group now, so I'm just moving it so you can see it a little bit better, and we've got the gaps in the middle. This is going to come on top of this, and what we're going to do, we're going to select just those and go edit center and edit middle, and hopefully if I zoom in, because we've created gaps here and here in, let me just rotate this back so you see what I'm talking about. Because we've created gaps here and here, this actually measures slightly bigger now than 5.25. If you look here, it's 5.31. So if we make this 1.5 by 5.25, it doesn't touch the outside edges here and here, and that's what we want, because we don't want these nice straight lines interfering with when we weld it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to select it all, right click and group it, and then I'm going to rotate it back the right way up. So this is our middle section. So if we now select everything and go edit weld, it's now given us our box shape, because when she tells you to score at 1.5 and 3 3/4, and then at 1.5 and 2.5 this way, to make a box you then have to cut on those score lines. Doing it this way, it saves you having to cut and then notch out, but we are going to just effectively move these sections ever so slightly, because normally when you make a box, if you've watched anybody's videos or even some of mine in the past where I've done them with a scoreboard, you cut up your score line and then you do a bit of an angle cut, what's called notching in, and it just makes your box go together a little bit better. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to double click, and because these sections were individual sections before we welded them, you've got node points. We don't want to touch the node points on this middle section, we want to touch the node points on these outer, which will become glue tabs. So if I zoom in on there and double click, so basically what we're going to do, we're going to get this node and we're going to try and keep this line as straight as possible, and we're just going to left click and drag it over ever so slightly, and that effectively makes our notching out for our box. Then we're going to slide over to this end and do exactly the same. Try and keep this line straight and just move this over a little bit. Then we're going to do it to the opposite side. So again, find your node, move it over, oops, slide over, find your node and move it over. Now I'm just going to zoom to Matt to try and explain. So this middle section effectively is the front and the back of your box, and that's why you don't want to touch the nodes on there. So we've done our notching in now, all in one simple process. Now we want to put our fold lines in. You could put this in a scoreboard and just score it yourself, but I'm going to put the actual score lines in now that she told us to do originally. So basically I'm going to come back to the path icon, and what you want to do, I'll just zoom in and show you. When you get your path icon, you don't want to touch here because it will anchor it to a corner. You want to be in the middle, just underneath. So I'm just going to zoom back out again. So you want to be just on the white section of your mat here, not actually touching this, because sometimes it'll, when you click, it wants to anchor to a corner. So left click, see, I think it's done it there now. So I'm going to undo that So you just want to be a bit lower. So left click, hold your shift key down, double click to anchor it, come to your properties box, make it a cut line, make it a dash line, and do exactly the same. Edit icon or path icon, left click, let go, press your shift key down, just drag your mouse out without without pressing anything on your mouse, double click to anchor it. Again, cut line, dash line. And then again you want to put these in. So what we're going to do is we're going to left click beyond the line, and that way if we don't get them in the right place we can select them and move them into position. So path icon, just going to do this by eye to about here, left click, hold your shift key down, left click to anchor. While it's selected, change it to a cut line and a dash line. And then because it's selected, we can now use the arrows on our keyboard up or down to bring it into position here. And again, you want it just below these bottom sections. So I'm just going to move it down so you can see a little bit of daylight. And then I'm going to do the other one across here. So again, path icon, left click beyond, drag it across in a straight line, double click while it's selected, cut, and then dash, and then this time I've got to use the up arrow and get this to extend just beyond. And it's not quite, so by having these overlapping here or overlapping the edge you can select them easy. Sometimes it's very difficult to get hold of a dash line, and as you can see now that one obviously I mustn't have clicked it to make it a dash line, so we'll change that. So you've now got your horizontal and vertical fold lines that your machine will put in for you, and you've got the base of your box. So I'm going to drag an imaginary box around everything, right click and group, and then I'm just going to come back to fit to mat. So we can get rid of this now because we don't need it. I just put that there to try and explain the orientation of the base of the box. So I'm going to put this up here now. Now one thing I would say, if you follow the video and you have your dash lines extending beyond like I tend to do, if you're trying to get many things on your mat, always make sure that your dash lines don't extend beyond this red dash line here, which is your cut line, because when you come to try and save your project it'll tell you it can't save it because there's something outside of the lines. So always make sure that your whole design, including your overhang of your dash lines, is within that cut line area. That's the top of the box. And then the other thing she tells you to do is to use a piece of scrap that is for the flag here. And this just needs to be a rectangle, zoom back out, that needs to be 1/4 of an inch by 4 inches. So again, I'm going to take this down to 1/4 of an inch and make that 4. And then she tells you to fold this in half so that it's a little bit more, if I bring this on, so that this is a little bit more sturdy. If you just use one piece of card, when you attach something on the top, this can kind of flop around. So she tells you to fold it in half and glue it together, and that way it's a little bit more substantial. The B mine is a Stampin' Up stamp that I've got, and the heart I've cut for this particular box at 1/4 of an inch, but you can do whatever you want. She just used cut a piece of card and put something on it. I don't think in this particular case, with this being so small, I wouldn't bother putting a dash line in the middle. You can literally just fold that in half and glue it. So that was how I made my project based on the video that May did. I'll leave a link to her video in the description box directly below my video so that you can go and have a look and follow her assembly if you want to. But basically, you, on the outer side of your card, so whichever's your inside and outside, on the outer side of your card you apply glue. Well, the way I did it, she just put a tiny little bit on one section. I put glue on each of these 4 outer corners, and these outer corners fold in. So I folded one corner inwards and the other its opposite corner in, and stuck those 2 together, and then I folded up this back or front section over those to make it all nice and neat. So I hope you found that helpful. It's just another way of creating boxes on your ScanNCut. Anyway, I hope that made sense, and I hope you found it helpful. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.